Some brands, they just sell you a thing, a product. But every once in a while, a brand becomes something more. It becomes a story, a symbol, an absolute icon. And today, we're diving into the saga of one of the all-time greats, Harley-Davidson. Now, this right here, this isn't just some clever marketing slogan somebody cooked up in a boardroom. Now, this is a promise that was literally forged in steel, tested by over a century of history, and it's been thundering down the open roads ever since. And that's really the big question we're going to tackle in this explainer. How did this happen? It's an incredible journey from a backyard project to a global legend. And believe it or not, it all starts in the most humble place imaginable. So, let's get into it. Our story doesn't start in some massive, state-of-the-art factory. Nope. It begins in a little wooden shed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Just try to picture this for a second. The year is 1903. You've got this tiny shed, and inside are two childhood friends, William S. Harley, who was a draftsman, and Arthur Davidson, a pattern maker. And they had this kind of crazy idea. They wanted to build a motorized bicycle that could actually conquer the hills around Milwaukee without any help from pedaling. A pretty big ask back then. So their first shot at it? Yeah, it was a complete flop. It was basically just a regular bicycle frame with this tiny little engine bolted onto it, and it just didn't have the muscle. But right there, they learned the most important lesson of all. It's gotta have more power. So Harley went straight back to the drawing board and designed a bigger, way more robust engine that could actually get the job done. And this is where it gets really interesting, because it wasn't just about building a bike. It was about building a company. They had the absolute perfect team. You've got William Harley, the visionary, the brains behind the design. You've got Arthur Davidson, the guy who could sell it. And then his brothers came on board, Walter, who was a master machinist and the fearless first test rider, and William, who knew how to actually build these things at scale. Every single piece of the puzzle was right there. All right, so they've got the team. Now let's talk about the heart of the machine, the thing that really gives a Harley its soul, and of course, that incredible sound. And here it is, the 45-degree V-twin. This thing is so much more than just a motor. It is the very DNA of Harley-Davidson. And that specific 45-degree angle, that's the secret sauce. That's what gives it that unique power delivery. And yeah, the sound we all know. And what's so cool is that they never stopped perfecting this engine. Just look at this evolution. You had the knucklehead back in '36. That was a total game changer with its overhead valve design. Then you jump to the panhead, and all of a sudden you've got modern stuff like an electric starter. And then, the Evolution engine in the '80s, that thing literally saved the company by restoring its reputation for rock-solid quality when they needed it most. But all that power, all that engineering, it created something else entirely, something you can't measure in horsepower. It created a sound, a beat that would become absolutely legendary. That's right, that iconic potato, potato, potato rumble. That's not an accident or a flaw. That's physics. It's the direct result of that 45-degree V-twin's unique firing order. It is, quite literally, the heartbeat of the machine. So you've got a great team and a legendary engine. That's how you build a company. But to build a legend, well, that takes something else. It takes resilience. Let's look at how Harley-Davidson was basically forged in the fires of American history. Seriously, look at this. The 20th century threw everything it had at these guys. We're talking 2 world wars and the single biggest economic meltdown in modern history. Any one of those events should have been the end. And the numbers here are just staggering. In World War I, the U.S. military relied on about 20,000 Harleys. But then you get to World War II, and that number just explodes to nearly 90,000 of their legendary Liberator model. This is what cemented their reputation around the globe as a machine that was tough as nails and absolutely reliable. Now think about this for a second. When the Great Depression hit, it wiped out hundreds of motorcycle companies. They just vanished. In the end, only 2 major American brands were left standing, Harley-Davidson and their rival, Indian. So how'd Harley do it? Well, they got scrappy. They diversified, building things like industrial engines and even these little 3-wheel delivery vehicles called Servi-Cars. They did whatever it took to survive. Okay, so they survived world wars, they survived the Great Depression. You'd think they were invincible, right? Well, their next big test, and maybe the biggest one ever, wasn't going to come from the outside world. No, it was going to come from inside their own walls. A crisis that almost silenced that famous rumble for good. So in 1969, Harley was sold to this big conglomerate, AMF, and their main focus immediately became cutting costs. And you know what happens when you do that?
quality just plummeted. The bikes started breaking down, the brand's reputation was dying. But then, in this legendary move, 13 of the company's top executives, led by the grandson of one of the original founders, mortgaged everything they had to buy their company back.
And this became their rallying cry. The eagle soars alone. Man, that's powerful stuff. It was way more than a slogan. It was a declaration of independence. It was them telling the world, we're back, and we're going back to the core values that made us great in the first place. And they didn't just talk the talk, they backed it up with incredible engineering. The Evolution engine, the Evo, wasn't just an update. It was a complete revolution. It ran cooler, it produced more power, and, get this, it was virtually oil-tight. It finally put an end to those notorious oil leaks that had plagued the brand. This single engine, more than anything else, is what restored the world's faith in the Harley-Davidson name. So when you step back and you look at the whole journey, from that tiny 10 by 15-foot shed all the way to a global icon, it's really a story about one thing: believing in a powerful idea and having the guts and the ingenuity to see it through, no matter what gets thrown at you. Which leaves us with one last question to think about. The next time you hear that unmistakable rumble, are you just hearing a masterfully engineered V-twin engine? Or are you hearing the echo of a promise, made in a tiny shed over a century ago? The sound of the open road itself.